The Nick Scott Effect. The Nick Scott Effect. Available everywhere podcasts are found.
Well, the first thing I wanted to ask you is my wife wanted me to ask about your pen collection. Do you still collect pens?
I do. I've got a number of fountain pens. I love to collect pens, and so I mean here's one of them. This is actually a pen that I signed the agreement with Cutter for our bilateral agreement. So I've kind of been using that as a everyday pen. I'm pretty proud of it, and those folks, they provided it. I'll end up having to pay for it at the end of my career here, so that I keep myself out of trouble.
Sure. And I'd like to touch on that a little later. Some of the feats that you've been able to do with the soldiers of the West Virginia National Guard. The first thing right off the bat is I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and a little bit about maybe our linear path to getting to know each other. Years ago, you were the chief of staff of the Army for the West Virginia Army National Guard, and my wife was your administrative assistant. So at that time, I was still working in radio. I would come have lunch with her and see her, and we got to know each other well. We've always had a lot of respect for you, so much so that when we heard you were going to become TAG, we were overcome with joy. So first, I want to say congratulations, and we're so happy for you in that role, sir.
Well, I appreciate that, Nick. She did a great job for me while she was over there, and I understand she's transitioned and it's doing even better and more great stuff for our One Guard. And I just appreciate everything she's done, and I'm glad you're on the team. And I talk about this all the time. I say it's a One Guard, but the way I look at it is it's one big family, and I call it the family business because just like you two are in it. Her father's been in it, and my son's in it. It's just a lot of family members continue to join and continue on with the tradition within the West Virginia National Guard.
So that brings me to the beginning. Something that's always fascinated me is all of our stories have a beginning. Can you still hear me, sir?
I can, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, you broke out just a little bit on me. So there was a point in my life when I can remember being a child and the first time I saw a guitar or a drum set, and I realized I wanted to be a musician. The first time I saw a radio studio. So what was the first time you realized that you wanted to have a military career?
Well, I'll tell you, it's actually kind of a funny story because I hadn't really thought about it. I had a couple of really good teachers at high school. I had a math teacher, Mr. Rucker, and I had an English teacher, Miss Gellner. I still remember both of them. I can remember them well now. I remember them the way they were back then. I don't know how they look today, but so they were challenging me because I'd always said I wasn't going to go to college, and so because I thought at 18 or 17 we all think we know everything, and right. So they were able to explain and actually showed me by giving me tests that we'd never covered the material. So they wanted to make sure that I understood exactly how little I actually knew. And so I really appreciated them doing that. And so they kind of convinced me that I needed to go to college. And my mom and dad, my dad worked as a chemist at a plant as a technician. And, they hadn't really saved for any college. And so I came home one day, and there's actually a recruiter sitting there waiting on me. And so I hadn't really thought about it, but when I came home, they said, "Hey, if you want to go to college, this is how you're going to do it." And I'll tell you, it's the best decision they made for me. And the best decision I made ultimately at about 11 years was to stick with it. Because I think all of us go through ups and downs in our career. And at one point, I was working as a chemist, and I felt like I was too busy to be in the Guard anymore. I kind of had to, and somebody got me over that hump and got me to the 11th year, at which point I was like, it's only 9 more years and I could get a retirement out of this. And then ultimately, as you know, I became full time.
Yeah. And that's something that has always intrigued me with your story. I didn't know you actually held chemistry patents until my wife told me. Are you allowed to talk about those or?
Yeah, I mean they're process patents, and of course, when you work for a company, they end up owning the patents because you know all of the work I did was within that company, and so all the equipment I used and all that was their equipment. And there was a whole team. You know, I just happened to have my name on three of those. There was a whole team of us that did those. You know, one of them was about how to do copolymers in a continuous fashion. Typically, before we came up with that idea, everything was done in a batch process, and so you'd make one product, then you'd have to spend a lot of money cleaning it, then you'd have to dispose of all those cleaning materials, and so by going to this continuous process, we eliminated an entire waste stream, and
Oh, wow.
one operator is able to run about 3 or 4 of these machines and make 3 or 4 products at one time. And so it saved it was a great environmental win. It was a great win for the company. I'm sure they've made millions, if not $1 billion, off of that one process that we improved
Yep.
alone. And then a couple others we figured out how to do. So the product we made was a surface tension reduction agent, and that surface tension reduction agent was used in polyurethane foam. And
Oh, wow.
so if you look at automobiles, when you buy an automobile, a lot of times you'll see that frost that ends up on the windshield. Well, that's coming from gases that come out of that polyurethane foam. And so we were trying to make a low volatility polyurethane foam. So we found another product we could put that in so that it would be low volatility and reduce that film, and also helps keep those volatile organic compounds out of the atmosphere. So it was a big deal as well. So just that's a couple things that we worked on, and I had a great boss and a great team, and it was a really good time. I learned a lot, and I still can say that I kind of miss the chemistry of it. But I can't say I made the wrong decision. I'll tell you that.
So take me through that decision. When were you presented making that transition from working as a chemist to becoming full-time with the National Guard?
So I had said all along there was one job in particular that if it came open, I would apply for that, and if I got selected, I would take it. And that job was the training officer for the 1092nd Engineer Battalion there in Parkersburg. And so I worked as a chemist for about 5 years before that came open. It came open. I decided to apply for it, and thankfully I was selected. And then this was after I had about 12 years in as a traditional soldier. So, I understood what it meant to be a traditional soldier and giving up your weekends and giving up a couple weeks in your summer, and there's just never knowing if you're getting called out for flood duty or all of those things, and I haven't forgotten that. And I think it's always important to remember where you came from and that what kind of struggles our M-Day soldiers go through that aren't full time, because it's a real challenge to balance the family, balance your civilian career, and then balance the National Guard. But again, I was fortunate they selected me for that position. And, I will tell you, I took a pretty good pay cut to do it. But, in the long run, it's worked out great for me. And, I still talk to my old boss, Paul Austin, he lives up in Williamstown, just a great guy. It was a really good job. And I miss the chemistry. And so I would always like to be able to get back to being able to do something in that regards. Maybe I'll do some kind of a brewing with beer or something like that, just so I can get back to my chemistry roots.
Well, sir, if you need a guinea pig, if you get into that.
Well, I've got the equipment, and I've done it before. It's just been with this job, I haven't quite had the time to do it.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by the Appalachian Outpost, located in Lyburn, West Virginia. 5 minutes from the city of Man, West Virginia, about 10 minutes away from the city of Logan, West Virginia, and a quarter of a mile from the Rock House Trail System. That's a part of the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System. It is the perfect spot if you are a side-by-side rider, a four-wheeler rider, or just an off-roader. If you have like a big Jeep you like to take off-roads, this is your spot, man, because they've got cabins that feel like home. They've got a delicious bar and restaurant on site, the Broken Axle, and they're getting ready to open a gas station right on site. So when you need to refuel, everything you need is right there. The cabins are fantastic. I've stayed in them maybe 6 times, 7 times now. They're just like home. Everything you need is right there. You're minutes, if not seconds, away from a trail system, the same trail system that'll take you to Devil Anse's cemetery site, where if you're a history nerd, might be cool to check that out. And great food at the Broken Axle. And each summer they do an awesome concert series. You got to check out Appalachian Outpost at AppalachianOutpost.com. Again, the website is AppalachianOutpost.com, where you can book a cabin right there on their website. So if you want to plan a trip with your friends, you don't have to go very far. Just go to AppalachianOutpost.com. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by the Facial Center. The Facial Center is located in Kanawha City, a suburb of Charleston, West Virginia. They have a ton of services that they offer, and I'm going to list a few, and then I'm going to tell you what I use. Yes, what I use. They are a full-service medical spa to meet your aesthetic needs, offering skincare products, facials, injectables, laser treatments, hormone replacements, PDO thread lifts, weight loss, and cosmetic surgeries. Now, what are they doing for me? I have a lot of tattoos. I actually have appointments to get more. So I didn't learn my lesson. But they offer tattoo removal. And most folks who have quite a few tattoos, we have a few oops. So I'm getting an oops removed at the Facial Center. They offer tattoo removal. So if you have an oops as well, go to thefacialcenter.com. You can check out their tattoo removal, even go in for a consultation and schedule an appointment to begin getting your oops removed like I have. And if you want to see any of the other services that I mentioned, go to thefacialcenter.com. You can see their full menu of services. You can even contact them right there at thefacialcenter.com. I'm sure. So when the day comes, and I know we'll be sad to see it, but when the day comes that you decide to retire, is that something you would consider going back into post-military retirement?
Yeah, I'm open to a lot of things. My parents own a fishing lure business, and I've talked and thought about. My dad is getting up in age. He's about 84, and and I would hate to see his legacy kind of fold with him. So that may be something I look at taking over at some point when I retire, and maybe continue it. And again, that's just one thought. I've got a number of ideas in my head. I just got to make up my mind what I want to do when I grow up,
Sure.
and I'm not in a uniform anymore.
So if you're able to take me through, because you are one of a very, very, very few people that will ever get this phone call. What was it like when you found out you were going to be the next Adjutant General of the West Virginia National Guard?
Well, Nick, as you know, with your wife, you don't get into any of this kind of stuff without a lot of support. And so when the former Adjutant General talked to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to retire," and I'm thinking about telling the governor I'm going to recommend to him that you become the next Adjutant General, I said, "Hey, that I appreciate that, but I need to talk to my wife, and I want to make sure she understands fully what that looks like." And so General Hoyer and his wife Amy and I went to dinner with my wife and Jennifer, and we had a pretty good conversation. So that I wanted to make sure that my wife Jennifer went into this with her eyes completely open as to what kind of commitment this really entails. And it's hard to get anybody to understand what kind of commitment this is. She totally understands it now, and we have a lot of discussions about calendar and that kind of stuff, so we can make sure we can still do things together. But getting the call, and it's quite an honor, leading soldiers and airmen has been my passion now for nearly 39 years. And
Wow.
it's it's just an honor to be asked to lead the entire National Guard. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Governor Justice giving me that opportunity. And we have led this through the pandemic. We've led it through some ice storms. We've led it through some flooding. It's and I've got a great team around me. I couldn't ask for much for any better team, quite honestly. And so, it's an incredible honor, and I'm very thankful every day that he's given me the chance to do this. And he's been a great commander in chief. I mean, what he's done to help lead us through the pandemic, what he's done to help the state get on really solid financial footing. I think we all could say, I can't see how anybody could say he hasn't done a good job.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree, sir. I believe Justice has done a wonderful job. Excuse me. To your credit, I think you've done a wonderful job in your leadership as well. The pandemic was such a crazy time for all of us. So much uncertainty there for any of us. I mean, it touched all of our lives. So to be able to turn on a radio or TV or go to a news station's website and see what our state leaders are doing and saying and leading was, I think, extremely helpful to all of us. So thank you for your service in that time as well.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think you're right. Being able to get the information, and I'll tell you, he selected a really quality cabinet. So if you ever get a chance to go on and see who the cabinet members are, I mean, what an incredible team, being led by a great chief of staff, and just everybody's pulling in the right direction. We work well as a team. We don't infight, which is great. So we're all getting along, and we're all doing what the work that needs to be done to help the citizens of West Virginia, because everybody has that goal in mind.
Absolutely. And you were speaking earlier about the One Guard, and that's one thing in my notes was the benefits of joining the National Guard, more specifically young adults as they're coming through high school, maybe thinking about their college career, just like the story you told of your life where you're presented with college and maybe the National Guard assisting in college. What are some benefits to joining the West Virginia National Guard, and how will that help them with college?
Well, as you may or may not be aware, I just had them increase the tuition assistance from $7,000 a year to $9,000.
Oh wow, sir! I didn't know that.
So
that's incredible.
if you've watched, every year the tuition rates go up. So we were not at, and we're still not at 100%. There's still going to be a little bit out of pocket for some members that are in the STEM programs and that kind of stuff, because we just, budget-wise, we're not quite there. But, being able to move it up 2,000, I think is a huge help for our members. I was able to get all the way through my master's degree, and I was able to do that without paying a dime for it. So that's very helpful, and I think that's a great thing for all of our members. But it's not just being able to get the degrees. It's the training you receive as a member of the service, whether that's in the Army or the Air. You really get a leg up. I mean, you think about it, we put 18 to 20-year-olds on a checkpoint somewhere in the middle of nowhere and allow them to make decisions that have international implications. And we put people out in our state, again, in relations with the public, and allow them to make, decisions that impact the entire state. And that, you think about the level of responsibility we're giving to those folks, and they, almost to a person, they do a great job with it. And they really are there to help people. And so that to me, it provides them with leadership training that allows them to go into some civilian career and gives them a leg up. I mean, I can't imagine many companies that would give the level of responsibility that we give. And I think we owe it to our members to be talking to those companies and telling them, hey, these folks know how to do this. You need to put them in some kind of a leadership role and turn them loose and let them make things happen. Because, I know for me, it has always given me a good leg up in every career that I've tried to do. And so I think that's the other piece. And, you know, I've watched these generations that are coming up. They're really good at communicating using these kind of applications and stuff. They can make things happen and not even verbally say anything. You know, so
Yep.
it's pretty incredible what they can do in that regard. And I think they're all looking for some higher purpose, something that's more meaningful. And if you're looking for something meaningful with a higher purpose, there's nothing more meaningful in my mind than providing help to citizens throughout the state of West Virginia in times of need. And you immediately see the results of that. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten calls from mayors and county commissioners and just individuals thanking us for coming and helping when there's a problem in West Virginia. Because as you know, Nick, I mean, in West Virginia, when they see this uniform, unlike maybe some other states, they know the help is there. And they know that we're there to provide that help. And we help calm the nerves. And that's what's the most important. And, you know, that's what the governor expects out of us.
I could tell you in living through the 2016 floods, so we live in the Elkview area. Now, thankfully, our home is on the side of 119 that is not along the Elk River. However, as you know, my in-laws, they were right there. It was a blessing. The Lord answered some prayers. The floodwaters didn't actually get into the home, but there was some damage. But I remember afterwards the carnage, for lack of a better word, that was left after the floodwaters went down. And one memory I always have, like it was yesterday, was driving down 119, and you saw the Humvees, or you saw other type of military transports, but you saw that uniform, and you saw the men and women of the National Guard, whether it be sandbags or taking water and food around, checking homes for people to see if they were in need or in any type of distress. You saw pictures online of on swift water boats, if I remember correctly, going from home to home. You saw our wonderful aviators going and doing their thing with our helicopters. So that memory, even before I worked for the National Guard, continued over, and there was a sense of like, wow, help is here, and they did a wonderful job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just recently, you know, I got a call from one of the county commissioners from Fayette County, and when there was a forest fire over there, and we were able. This is the first time we've ever used our aviation assets to drop water for a forest fire, and so
wow.
we sent them over and made a tremendous impact in, you know, saving businesses and homes, and making sure that again, doing everything we can to protect the citizens of West Virginia. And so it's just stuff like that we step up every time the governor asks. And you know, it's the governor asking me, but you know, I turn around and ask people to come and help, and it's an ask. We never have to order them to do it. They're willing to come up and put themselves at risk. I mean, flying a helicopter in a smoke cloud, getting water out of the river, and then taking it somewhere and dropping it. That's not. There's hazards and risk involved in that, and so they're willing to put their lives on the line in a lot of cases to go help people. Just like you said about the swift water stuff, there aren't many more dangerous things you can do than to jump into swift water and try to rescue somebody. So we have incredible people that are willing to stand up and do things to help their state. And quite honestly, when the time is required, when it's needed, and we go overseas, you know, and help with the away fight. And we've had incredible units go over and do amazing things, and helping out with bringing some Afghanis out of Afghanistan, bringing our own people out of Afghanistan. The 167th did that mission with the Allies Welcome, and again, just amazing. They're landing in a hostile environment, putting people on the aircraft and flying them out to Qatar, and it's just incredible what they're willing to do.
And I don't think you see a lot of media coverage, or maybe it didn't come across to me, but I hear a lot of our soldiers going and helping other states in their time of need as well. So they're not only helping our citizens in West Virginia, but they're also called to help when other states need assistance as well.
Yeah, so we were down in Kentucky and helped out. We always do we have these agreements. They're called EMAC agreements between states. So if Kentucky or Ohio or Pennsylvania or West Virginia, in fact, if we need help, we'll have people come in, soldiers or airmen come in from other states to assist if there's a capability that we don't have that we need. And so we sent a lot of aviation assets down into Kentucky to help rescue people because the flooding was so quick. They were hoisting people off of roofs and out of trees, and I mean just to save their lives. And we had General Wurtzler came up and made a few of them Kentucky colonels, I think, there because of the efforts that our aviators did, and that's just And again, that's a fellow tag in Kentucky. General Lamberton calling me and saying, "Hey, can you come help?" And we all we know each other and we work together, and we know how important it is to help, because the next time it might be me that needs help.
Absolutely. Switch gears a little bit from the military workforce. So myself, a lot of people don't know this because I don't talk a lot about it, but I do work for the National Guard Monday through Friday. And people have asked me why I left radio. There's nothing bad, nothing negative. It was just one of those things where the industry changed. A lot of the financials changed. Maybe you have a similar experience from your days in chemistry. It's wonderful because what the National Guard did for me. So I work for what we call the West Virginia Military Authority as a civilian. And what it did for me was not only give my family a little bit better financial security, but also a much better work schedule, a wonderful work environment. What are some other wonderful benefits our civilian workforce can experience if someone's out there looking for a job?
Yeah, so we have all different kinds of opportunities in the West Virginia Military Authority. The thing that's interesting is there are a number of different statuses within the National Guard, and this is across every state in the country. So, we have our traditional soldiers that come in on weekend drills and do the summer thing. And I try not to say it's 1 weekend a month or 2 weeks in the summer, because it tends to be a little bit more than that, or sometimes it can be a lot more than that. It just depends on what the environment is, what the weather's doing and those kind of things. And then we have our active Guard and Reserve, our AGRs, which they're like on an active duty. So they get paid just the same as our active duty counterparts do. We have military technicians, so they wear a uniform every day, and they're federal technicians, are paid by the federal government. And then we have the military authority, and we have state employees as well, just straight state. The military authority folks, again, sometimes they're family members like yourself and your wife that we bring on and have you work in the military authority. Sometimes they're retirees that we know that they have a capability that we'd like to maintain and keep them on and help us to continue to do a good job for the governor. And then, there's the folks that do the work every day to make sure that floors are good and bathrooms are clean and the maintenance is done on the buildings. I mean, it's those folks deserve a heck of a lot of credit. In my mind, they're kind of unsung heroes, and I try very hard to thank them every day when I see them, because they deserve a lot of credit for doing what they're doing. And so again, we have a little bit of everything. So if we have accountants, we have contracting folks, and so if anybody's looking for a job, we have a lot of those kind of opportunities. I think the last I checked, we had about 50 to 55 vacancies that we're trying to fill. So, absolutely would love to have people take a look at that.
And what I could do, sir, is in the show notes of the podcast, I can put the link to the West Virginia Military Authority's job page. So if you are looking for a job, you can just go to the show notes of this podcast, simply follow the link to the West Virginia Military Authority, and it'll walk you through the application process. and it's a very easy process. And I tell you, I have made lifelong friends working for the National Guard.
And that's and
Oh
I
yeah, the
think
best.
that's the thing that I would say is really incredible is the atmosphere and the people that you work with are just top notch. I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
not going to sit here and tell you that we don't have problems. We absolutely have problems, but by and large, as you've said, I've worked in the civilian environment. You've worked in the civilian environment. Uh, it could be a bit challenging at times to work in that environment, and I think our environment, is bar none is better than any I've ever worked in.
This is very true. And the great thing is, working in the civilian environment, especially media and broadcasting, um, as happens when you work, you're going to not jive with every single person you come across, right? That's just human. Whereas in an environment like with the National Guard, like you said, there are challenges, but we have steps in place that if you do encounter challenges, they're usually easily resolved and easily squashed away. And that's what makes it, as you said, a great working atmosphere.
Right, absolutely, and I think process wise, and as I talk about all the time, my expectation is we treat each other like family. Now, you know, I know families will argue, and we may have to step in, like parents have to step in sometimes and say, "Hey, look, you go to your corner, and you go to your corner. Let's talk this through and let's figure this out." But by and large, everybody treats each other with a lot of respect, and that's the expectation.
Yep.
And and that goes for, I don't care if you're African American, what your sexual gender is, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is that if somebody has decided to sign up to offer up their life to defend our Constitution, or you're part of the military authority that is helping that person to defend the Constitution, who am I to say no to you? You know what? Nobody should
Absolutely,
say
sir.
no to that. All of us are created equal, and so everybody should have an equal opportunity. And so when we talk about, if we have those kind of issues and people are not being treated the right way, we're gonna deal with it. And it isn't always put out there what we've done, because there's a lot of rules as to what we can and can't say. But at the end of the day, everybody's
Sure.
got to be treated with dignity and respect, and that's my expectation, as I would treat my family with dignity and respect. I want to make sure that my kids have the best opportunities that are out there for them. I want to do the same for everybody in my organization.
Yeah, and I think it shows, sir. It definitely it goes quote unquote downhill because the environment is wonderful. I look forward to going to work every day. I look forward, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you. This is coming from my heart. I look forward to coming in every day. I look forward to grabbing a cup of coffee, and then we get to work. We do our work, and it's a lighthearted atmosphere. Nothing too tense, too heavy, and we enjoy our time. And I think that is something most professionals are longing for today. So I'll put those links in the show notes for the West Virginia Military Authority. It's a wonderful place to work and wonderful career
Yeah, and
opportunities.
I
Talking
would
about
say
Oh,
the
sorry,
one
go
thing I
ahead.
would add to that, Nick, is, again, I go back to
Mhm.
always saying this, because I think there are a lot of people out there that are looking for that environment. They're looking for that purpose. They're looking for that opportunity. And I don't know that, we sell it real well sometimes, because I think people get the wrong impression about the being in the service, that my son or my daughter is going to go away and get shot. I mean, that's and it's a valid concern. But most of it is not that. Most of it is helping respond in times of need for our citizens of West Virginia. And I think a lot of people would love to sign up for that and come and help in times of
Yes.
need.
You've touched on it already a little bit. What are some of your favorite accomplishments the soldiers, the men and women of the West Virginia National Guard have done in your tenure?
Well, I mean, we've we have the challenge academies, the youth leaders challenge academies, that where we bring youth in that the traditional school system isn't working real well for them. And we actually had one of those cadets get selected to go to West Point. And you think about that.
Oh, wow.
You've
Yeah.
got a young man that was in a traditional high school setting, wasn't doing terrible, but wasn't excelling like he wanted to. We bring him into the Challenge Academy and put him through that 22-week program and get selected to go to West Point. That's a heck of a deal.
That is incredible.
And oh, by the way, the same young man got a sapper tab before he even went to West Point. So that's an engineer thing. It's a leadership thing. So he's already showing leadership at 18 years old. It goes back to what I said earlier.
Wow.
And just everything we've done in the pandemic response. We have created an environment that allowed us to go take care of our elderly folks quickly and make sure they got vaccinated early. We didn't wait for the federal government to tell us how to do this. We knew that was the most vulnerable population, so we went in as fast as possible to make sure they're vaccinated. And I'm telling you, that was from the governor's leadership telling us this is what we need to do. And we saved hundreds of lives, if not thousands of lives, by getting in there and getting them vaccinated. And now we've established a warehouse down in the Dunbar area, and that warehouse is our state response warehouse. So we have emergency management, we have DHHR, we have the West Virginia National Guard, we have a food bank. All of that is in one location, so it makes it real easy for us to coordinate and talk through, and that's a big deal when you're trying to respond, to have everybody sitting around the table and talking through how we're going to make something happen. So again, I can't be more proud of that. And the number of people that have come back from deployments, and the 111th, the 130th, the 167th, all of those missions that our organizations have done overseas, the 150th, I could go on, and I hope I don't upset anybody because I didn't say their unit, because quite honestly, all of them have done something. And, the 111th was in charge of a huge swath of the Middle East for engineer support while they were over there, and built out, a tent city for all the Afghan refugees that were coming. And they did that within a 30-day window. And again, the folks flying them in and getting them off the plane and taking good care of them. I mean, it's amazing to me. And what is amazing is that we as guardsmen, we don't bring just our Army or Air Force skill set that they've trained us. We bring our civilian skill set. So we had a young man that was working for Mylan Pharmaceuticals, and he was the worldwide distribution manager. And so you bring a guy like that in, and you say, hey, we've got to get our vaccinations out to all of these different health departments. How do we do that? And he comes up with his hub and spoke, and here's how we're going to do it. And so having that kind of talent and knowing it's out there, and then allowing them to use that talent and help the citizens, that's what I'm most proud of. When we can take those kind of people that have just incredible civilian background, and you think about it, here's a guy I don't know how much money he was making, but I'd say he'd been doing pretty good, and he still decides that he wants to be a part of the National Guard, still wants to serve his country in a uniform. Think about that.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And,
that is amazing.
And I'll tell you, we got people like that in the 130th and the 167th. You got, guys that are flying for United and American Airlines and all that. And then on weekends, they'll come in and fly at the 167th, or they'll fly with the 130th. And you got guys in the 219 that work for three-letter agencies. And on weekends, they want to come in and be a part of this. And, I just think it speaks volumes to the organization that my predecessors have built, and I'm just trying to continue to add more blocks to that the wall we're building, or whatever it is we want to call it. But it's a great opportunity.
Well, that's a great segue. You were talking about the wall that you're building. So what are your future plans for the National Guard? Do you have any big projects you're working on that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so we've got we have a opportunity up at FOLA, which is up in Clay County, and so the Marine Corps are coming in and doing a lot of training up there. So we're able to work with them a lot, and I got to visit Poland and not too long ago, and the Republic of Georgia, and I met with Lieutenant General Kukulia, and it looks like he's going to be a 4-star general in Poland real soon. And we used to do an event called Ridge Runner, and I've told my folks I need us to get that running again. And Ridge Runners it's an irregular warfare training opportunity. We set up some lanes, and they can come to West Virginia. And I'll tell you, the state police, the local mayor, all the people really support folks coming here and doing this training. And if you watch what's happening in Ukraine, that's what we're training in West Virginia, and that's what our soft guys have been training in Ukraine to help them be prepared if Russia would ever come. Well, we've had a great relationship with Poland through the Illinois National Guard. That's their state partner, so we've worked with them and brought them to West Virginia. In fact, they were just here last week, again talking about Ridge Runner. We have a great relationship with Peru, and you've seen, I'm sure, what's been going on with Peru. And so we're reaching out to our partner down there and making sure that all of our military folks that we engage with are doing okay. We have people over in Qatar. That's our other state partner. We've been helping the last few years and making sure they're ready for the World Cup, to do the security, in particular, any response they would need to do to a chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear event. And so we've done a lot of work with them. We've had them over here. We've worked with them to train some of their Qataris to be special ops folks. And so again, it's an incredible thing that all of, people would be amazed, if you sat down and wrote out everything we do. I think people would be amazed at what we get done I always like to say West Virginia punches well above its weight, and it's because of the great people we have.
Are there any other topics you would like to share with anyone who's listening? Anything you'd like to put out there about the National Guard?
Well, I think again, if there's a young person looking for a higher purpose, I would tell them to always try real hard to think about coming and joining the West Virginia National Guard. There's no higher calling in my mind than to help your fellow man. And the other thing I would tell folks at this time of the year, I don't know when you'll air this, but
tomorrow, sir. I plan on releasing it tomorrow.
Okay, it is. The holidays are a time to celebrate, but they're also a stressful time for folks. And so I just ask, not just our West Virginia National Guard folks and our West Virginia Military Authority folks, but everybody that hears this is, look, keep an eye on your fellow, your neighbors, your family, and make sure they're doing okay, because this can be a real stressful time for folks. And if you're having that stress, reach out to somebody and talk to them. I tell people all the time, because I think if I'm able to say it and people hear me say it, and I'm a 2-star general, I've been in counseling for 4 years. And it's the best decision I've ever made. And it's helped me to learn how to communicate better. It's helped me to learn how to deal with my own internal anxiety that I have sometimes. And so if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I've made it to be the adjutant general and a 2-star general. So it's not going to stop your career. And the other thing I would say is, if you don't go get that help, don't worry about what people are thinking, because what people are thinking is, we want you back. We want you to come back into the family and be better. And so, that's the message I really want to share around the holiday season in particular. Just watch each other. And if there are people in the need that are in the Guard, we have all kinds of resources available that we can work to provide them either financial or some kind of counseling or whatever it might be.
So that brings so much joy to my heart to hear you talk about counseling. I've shared this in the podcast in the past. In 2020, My wife, Kelly, came to me and she noticed that I'd become a little bit more short with her. And I didn't know why. I mean, there was really nothing going on that would cause that. But she said, I think you need to talk to somebody. Now, what's the first thing we as men do? I don't need to talk to nobody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But my wife is my best friend. And I said, okay, honey, for you, I will. And you hit the nail on the head. Talking to a counselor, to a therapist has helped me. And I've been about 3 years now, has been the best thing I've ever done. Like you said, it helps you understand your body's reaction, your mind, how you are interpreting things, how you're internally thinking about things, and then, of course, how you react to them. So therapy, there's no shame in it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And it is by far, and I'm glad you said this too, the best thing that I ever did for myself.
Well, and I'll tell you that, what I want people to realize and think about is if you have a cold, you have a broken arm, you have some physical ailment, what do? You go to the doctor. You go get fixed, or you go get medicine for it. So it shouldn't be any different if you're going through a struggle. Everybody in their life is going to go through ups and downs. And the goal is to keep those ups and downs from being too high and some of them too low, so that you
Sure.
can live a really good life. And like I said, for me, it's just allowed me to figure out how to just kind of stay even on a lot of things. And
Sure.
I know people around me have talked and said, hey, you're not like you used to be. And it's true, because I don't feel that internal. And when you verbalize, you don't ruminate. If you can talk about it and you get it out, sometimes you realize, well, that wasn't really something you need to be worrying about anyway. So,
Well, I think it's a great transition to bring this up. I was walking around different facilities here at the Western National Guard. I see those big banners that talk about 22 a day suicide prevention for our soldiers and military members. Can you speak on that program a little bit and how that might help someone who needs it?
yeah. So again, it's just we as leaders all the way down need to make sure I think one of the worst things we did during COVID was to isolate from our soldiers and our airmen, because we didn't get to see them eye to eye. And so we had some, it's taking us a while to get that continuity back, to get the cohesion back that we once had. And so there's a ton of resources that the services provide, through Military One Source, or even there are local counselors that we can link people up with. We have our own director of psychological health that helps link people up to those resources. So again, it's just a matter of people either asking for the help, or their supervisor or their friend or whoever looking at them and say, hey, I think you might need some help, and let me have you talk to somebody. We have tremendous chaplains that are full time with us, and so that's another great resource that we have. And it's just, we have to make sure that we're paying attention to each other. Just the same thing I talk about with sexual assaults and those things. There's no place for that in our organization. There's no place for words that are harmful and hurtful. We as leaders at the lowest level, if you're an E4, you're a leader. If you're an E3, you're an E leader. You're a leader. You gotta, for this kind of stuff, you have to say, hey, that's not appropriate and that's not right, and stop it so that it doesn't escalate to something worse. And so again, that's just the kind of things that I think about. I never worry about the mission getting done. That's not something that keeps me up at night. What worries me and keeps me up at night is that people aren't treated right, or we miss the signs that somebody's struggling.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I try to focus on and talk to. I talked to a couple of airmen today that are having struggles, and it's the struggles they're having, or their spouses are having struggles, and their spouses have not necessarily they're not doing great themselves at that point. And
Sure.
it's like I tell them, when your spouse is struggling, you're struggling. There's no way around it. And so, I told them both to, work towards making sure they're getting the help they need, along with their spouse getting the help they need. So, and you got kids involved. I mean, everybody in that kind of an environment needs to get help and make sure that they're able to deal with the struggle that they're going through at that time. Because, you know, I had a good friend of mine once talk to me about, life is like a big long line, and today it's one little tiny dot on that line. And you just got to get past that moment, because great moments are coming ahead of it. So, when you're struggling, just think about what's coming ahead in the future, and there's some good stuff waiting on you.
That's very, very powerful, sir. Well, I won't take any more of your time up. As we wrap up, where are some places you would like folks to check out online, whether it be the National Guard's website or maybe a recruiting website or a recruiting office near where they live?
Yes, so there's recruit stations everywhere. You can go to the www.westvirginia.nationalng.mil, and that'll link you up with us. And we're always looking for great people, and whether that's in the Army or the Air, I don't care. I'd like to put you in either service. I may be Army, but I've also got a great Air Force in Martinsburg and here in Charleston. So again, look forward to having folks join our organization. And again, I want to wish everybody happy holidays, and I hope they're able to take some time and enjoy their families and spend time with them, and just remember all those good times and make great memories for the future.
Well, sir, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with me. Can we do this again? Maybe 6 months or so, a year? Would you be happy to jump back on?
Absolutely, Nick. I'm always happy to get the word out about our great organization and talk about the great work that our people do.
Well, thank you, sir. You have a great rest of your afternoon.
All right, you too.